Hello everyone and welcome to the biology lecture series. And today we'll be discussing the NCERT exercise for the topic human reproduction. So this lecture is the continuation of the previous lecture. Alright, so let's start with the first question. The first question is, mention the functions of the following: corpus luteum, endometrium, acrosome, sperm tail and fimbriae. So let's talk about the corpus luteum. So it is formed when the Graafian follicle ruptures, alright, and it releases the ovum or the secondary oocyte. Now the corpus luteum is a temporary endocrine gland. Okay, it acts as a temporary endocrine gland and secretes the hormones such as the progesterone during the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle. Clear? Now the progesterone is secreted. All right. So the level of the progesterone is very high during the luteal phase. All right. So when progesterone is secreted at high levels, the secretion of LH and FSH is inhibited, which further prevents the ovulation. Clear? Now, corpus luteum facilitates the endometrium of the uterus to proliferate and prepare for the process of implantation. Because the corpus luteum is secreting which hormone? It is secreting the progesterone. And progesterone helps to maintain the endometrium lining. Clear? Thus, it prepares the endometrium of the uterus for the process of the implantation. Clear? And you have to also remember that when progesterone is very high during the luteal phase, the secretion of LH and FSH will be inhibited. Clear? Now, let's talk about the endometrium. So, as the name suggests, endometrium is the innermost lining of the uterus, comprising of the glands that undergo cyclic changes during different stages of the menstrual cycle in order to prepare themselves for the embryo implantation process. So endometrium, you know, it is the innermost lining of the uterus and it undergoes cyclic changes during the menstrual cycle. So the thickness of the endometrium varies. So it is thinnest during the menstruation phase and it is thickest during the luteal phase. Clear? So during the different stages of the menstrual cycle, the thickness of the endometrium varies, and you can say the thickness of the endometrium depends on the estrogen and the progesterone. Clear? Mainly progesterone. So like in luteal phase, the level of progesterone is very high, so it maintains the thickness of the endometrium. So what happens during the menstruation phase? The endometrium is quite thick, and slowly the endometrium start to become thick, and it becomes thickest during the luteal phase. So why this thickness of the endometrium is increasing? To prepare the endometrium for the probable implantation. Now, what is acrosome? Acrosome is located at the interior section of the head of the sperm. All right. It resembles a cap-like structure and consists of the acrosome enzyme known as the hyaluronidase enzyme. And what is the function of this enzyme? It hydrolyzes the outer membrane of the egg. So, you know, sperm, it interacts with the zona pellucida of the ovum. All right. So, these enzymes, they break down this membrane and help the uh, fertilization. It helps in the process of the fertilization. So this enzyme, this helps in the sperm to perforate the egg, okay, during the fertilization. Then sperm tail, you know, this is the longest part of the sperm and it helps in the swimming of the sperms once they have entered into the female reproductive tract. Fimbriae, these are the finger-like projections that are present in the which region of the fallopian tube? This is present in the infundibulum region of the fallopian tube, and this helps in the collection or the gathering of the ovum after the ovulation. Clear? Now let's talk about the next question. Now we have the true and false question here. So we have to identify true and false statements. Clear? So what is the first statement? Androgens are produced by Sertoli cells. Is this true or false? Clear? So this is false. So androgens are produced by the Leydig cells that are present in the seminiferous tubules. Clear? So androgens, which are the male hormones, these are produced by the Leydig cells, also known as the interstitial cells. Clear? Now, androgens are the group of hormones which are primarily associated with the male development and physiology, although they are also present in females also. Clear? And albeit in the lower concentrations. The main androgen produced in female is the testosterone, which plays a crucial role in the development of the male reproductive tissues and secondary sexual characteristic. Clear? Now, Sertoli cells are specialized cells found in the seminiferous tubules of the testes and where the sperm production takes place. Okay, spermatogenesis takes place in the seminiferous tubules present in the testes. So these Sertoli cells, these are not directly involved in the androgen production, but they play a vital role in supporting the process of spermatogenesis because they provide nutrition to the spermatogonia. They also help in the regulating the testicular environment also. Clear. Now the production of androgen in the males primarily occurs in the Leydig cells, where which are found in the interstitial tissue surrounding the seminiferous tubules. All right. Now Leydig cells respond to the luteinizing hormone released by the pituitary gland. Clear? By synthesizing and releasing testosterone. So luteinizing hormone, this stimulate the Leydig cells to secrete the testosterone, and luteinizing hormone itself is released from the pituitary gland, which is an endocrine gland. Now, testosterone produced by the Leydig cell, this serves these several functions, including stimulating the development of the male reproductive organ during the fetal development. Okay. Next is the promoting the development of secondary sexual characteristic during the puberty. Okay. Third one is supporting the maintenance of the male reproductive function, including sperm production, libido, okay, throughout the adulthood. Okay, while Sertoli cells, they do not produce the androgens, but they are crucial in supporting and regulating the environment necessary for spermatogenesis, which is influenced by the presence of the testosterone and the hormones. Now, next is spermatozoa get nutrition from the Sertoli cells. Is this true or false? This is true. So, Sertoli cells provide support and nourishment to the developing spermatozoa also. Because the head of the spermatozoa, they get inserted into the Sertoli cells. Why? Because they need nutrition from the Sertoli cells. Clear? Now, here's how Sertoli cells contribute to the nutrition and the development of the spermatozoa. The first is the physical support. Now, Sertoli cells from the structural framework within the seminiferous tubules that support developing sperm cells. Now, they create tight junctions between the adjacent Sertoli cells, forming the blood and testis barrier that isolate the developing sperm cells from the body's immune system and prevents antibodies and harmful substances from entering the seminiferous tubule. Next one, nutritional support. So Sertoli cells provide essential nutrients and metabolic support, okay, to the developing sperm. Now they secrete various proteins, growth factors, and other molecules that promote the sperm development and the survival. Now, these include factors involved in energy metabolism, such as lactate and pyruvate, which serves as the energy sources for the sperms. Now, Sertoli cells also produce the androgen binding protein ABP, which binds to the testosterone and concentrated within the seminiferous tubule, creating an optimal environment for the spermatogenesis. Next is phagocytosis. So, Sertoli cells are capable of engulfing and digesting the degenerate or defective sperm cells. So this is quite important function here. So Sertoli cells, they have phagocytosis function. What are phagocytosis cells? So they engulf the foreign, you can say, the material or the defective material. So Sertoli cells, they engulf and they digest, okay, the defective sperm cells as well as the residual cytoplasm shed by the developing spermatids during the sperm maturation. Now, this process known as phagocytosis helps maintain the quality of the sperm produced within the testes. Next is hormonal regulation. So, Sertoli cells respond to various hormonal signals, including follicle stimulating hormone, okay, and testosterone also, which regulate the process of spermatogenesis. Follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the Sertoli cells to produce factors that support the sperm development, while testosterone produced by the Leydig cells in response to the LH hormone, it acts on the Sertoli cells to promote the maturation and release of the sperms into the seminiferous tubule. Clear? Next is Leydig cells are found in the ovary. So this is true or false? So this is obviously false because Leydig cells, these are present in the seminiferous tubule of the testes in the male. So these are not found in the ovaries. Okay. Instead, they are specialized cells found in the interstitial tissue of the testes of the male reproductive organs. These cells were named after the German anatomist. Okay, he was studying the anatomy, means the internal structure, Franz Leydig, who first proposed them. Now, in the testes, Leydig cells are situated between the seminiferous tubules, which are responsible for the sperm production. In the seminiferous tubules, spermatogenesis takes place. So, they are responsible for the sperm production and they are responsible for producing and secreting testosterone also, because Leydig cells, they are producing testosterone, which is the primary male sex hormone. Now, Leydig cells, okay, production of the testosterone from the Leydig cell is stimulated by the luteinizing hormone. So, luteinizing hormone, it triggers the Leydig cells to secrete the testosterone, and luteinizing hormone itself is secreted by the pituitary gland. Now, testosterone produced by the Leydig cells plays a crucial role in the male development and physiology. We already know that, including the development of the male reproductive organs during the fetal development, onset of the puberty also, and development of the secondary sexual characteristics such as facial and body hair, deepening of the voice, increased muscle mass. Additionally, testosterone supports the maintenance of the male reproductive function also, like sperm production and libido throughout the adulthood. All right. So, female reproductive system does not consist of the Leydig cells, clear, but female ovaries, they contain specialized cells known as the theca cells and the granular cells, which plays a role in production of the female sex hormones such as androgen and the progesterone. Clear, as well as they also help in the development and release of the egg during the ovulation. Now, Leydig cells synthesize androgen. Is this true or false? So it is true, obviously, because Leydig cells, which are found in the testes of the males, these secrete the androgens, including the testosterone. Now, when stimulated by the luteinizing hormone, the Leydig cells, they secrete the testosterone. This we already know. Clear? Now, the function of the testosterone, we already know. Development of the male reproductive organs. Clear? This we've already seen. Clear? Development of the male reproductive organs such as penis, scrotum, and prostate gland. Development of secondary sexual characters. We know what are the secondary sexual characters. So these include this facial and body hairs. Deepening of voice, enlargement of the larynx, also known as the Adam's apple, and increase in the muscle mass and bone density. Then spermatogenesis, the formation of the spermatozoa. This is known as spermatogenesis. Testosterone play a crucial role in this also. Clear? Now, libido and sexual function. So, testosterone is involved in regulating the sex drive also and sexual function in the males as well. So, it influences aspect of sexual desire, arousal, and erectile function also. Maintenance of the male reproductive tissues. To testosterone. Okay, it helps to maintain the reproductive tissue, including the testes and the accessory sex glands, such as prostate gland and the seminal vesicles. So, these are the accessory sex glands in the male, prostate gland, seminal vesicles. Now, next is oogenesis takes place in the corpus luteum. Is this true or false? Okay, so obviously this is false because oogenesis is the process by which female gametes or the eggs are produced, and these are produced in the ovaries. Okay, however, oogenesis does not take place in the corpus luteum. Instead, it occurs in the ovaries, especially within the structures known as the ovarian follicles. So this we have already discussed. And what was corpus luteum? So Graafian follicle, it degenerates and it releases the ovum. Okay, and this process is known as ovulation. Then the remaining structures is developed into the corpus luteum. Clear? And corpus luteum acts as a temporary endocrine gland and secretes progesterone as well as the estrogen in small amount. Now let's talk about the oogenesis. We already know, we have already discussed about the oogenesis. First is the formation of primary oocyte. Clear? So now we know there are some oogonia cells. These oogonia cells are diploid. These oogonia, they form the primary oocyte. Clear? So this oogonia, this enlarges and it forms the primary oocyte. Primary oocyte is diploid. Then this primary oocyte, it divides by meiosis 1 and it forms the secondary oocyte. This we've already discussed, and it forms the first polar body. This polar body further divides by mitosis and it forms two polar bodies. Clear? Then the secondary oocyte, this undergoes meiosis 2 and this will form the ooted and the second polar body. And you should remember that these divisions are unequal. Clear? So the secondary oocyte is a large cell and this polar body is the small cell. Again, this oocyte is a large cell and secondary polar body is the small cell. Okay? So these are known as unequal divisions. So in the end, three polar bodies are produced. Two polar bodies are here and this is the third polar body. These polar body will degenerate because they don't partake in the because they doesn't take part in the reproduction, and ooted will transform into the haploid ovum. Secondary oocytes should be haploid because it is formed after meiosis 1. Meiosis 1 is known as the reductional division. Meiosis 2 is same as mitosis. Clear? So otid will also be haploid. Ovum will also be the haploid. Clear? But one thing you should remember that the primary oocyte, okay, they remain arrested in the prophase 1 of meiosis until the puberty, and after the puberty they will complete the meiosis 1. So they are arrested in the prophase 1 of meiosis. So meiosis takes place in two phases. Okay, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. So primary oocyte, they get stuck in the prophase 1 of the meiosis. Clear? So what are the stages of the cell cycle? Prophase, metaphase, anaphase and telophase. Clear? So prophase 1 is here, then prophase, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, telophase 1. Similarly here, prophase 1, prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2 and telophase 2. So the primary oocyte, they get arrested in the prophase 1, okay, of the meiosis until the puberty, and after the puberty, the primary oocyte will complete the meiosis 1 and it will form the secondary oocyte. So secondary oocyte is formed after the organism attain the puberty. Clear? Maturation of the primary oocyte. Clear? So after the puberty, what happens? The primary oocyte are stimulated to resume the meiosis and they undergo further development. Primary oocyte completes its meiosis 1 to form the secondary oocyte and a smaller polar body. Then what happens? Ovulation and release of the secondary oocyte. So secondary oocyte is released when the Graafian follicle is ruptured. So mature follicle, also known as the Graafian follicle, this contains the secondary oocyte. This secondary oocyte is released by the rupture of this mature Graafian follicle. Okay, and this is released in the fallopian tube of the ovary. And where it reaches? It reaches the ampulla region of the fallopian tube. Then the secondary oocyte is arrested in the metaphase 2 of the meiosis. Clear? Then again, secondary oocyte is also arrested in the metaphase 2 of the meiosis. Okay, until it is activated by the sperm. So whenever the sperm it gets attached to the secondary oocyte, then it will complete the metaphase 2 of the meiosis. Clear? What happens next is the fertilization completion of meiosis 2. So what happens if the fertilization occurs? The secondary oocyte, it again becomes activated. Then what happens? It completes its meiosis 2. All right, and then what will form? A ooted will be formed that will transform into the ovum, and the second polar body will be formed. Then what happens? The Graafian follicle, it degenerates, it releases the secondary ovum, which gets transformed into the, it releases the secondary oocyte, which after fertilization, it gets transformed into the ovum. Then the remaining structure will get converted into the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is a temporary endocrine structure that is formed from the remnants of the, you can say, Graafian follicle. Graafian follicle is the ovarian follicle only. Okay. Now it secretes the hormone, primarily progesterone, which helps to prepare the uterine lining for the possible implantation, and it maintains the early pregnancy also. Clear? But corpus luteum is not directly involved in the oogenesis. Instead, it plays a role in the regulation of the menstrual cycle and early pregnancy. Clear? Now, next is menstrual cycle ceases during pregnancy. This is true or false? So, yes, this is true. So, what happens? The menstrual cycle typically ceases during the pregnancy. Clear? The menstrual cycle is a regular process that occurs in the female reproductive system. which involves the change in the hormonal levels, okay, and the shedding of the endometrium lining, which leads to the menstruation or the bleeding if fertilization does not occur. Clear? So there are a lot of changes in the hormones. So there is changes in the estrogen, progesterone. So these are both ovarian hormones, and there is change in the follicle stimulating hormone also and luteinizing hormone. So these two are pituitary hormones, and these two are the ovarian hormones. Okay, and there is a shedding of the endometrium also. Okay, whenever there is a decrease in the level of the estrogen and the progesterone, then what happens? The endometrium again become very thin, and it then breaks down. All right, and this leads to the bleeding. Clear? And what happens? How the level of estrogen progesterone decreases? Because the corpus luteum is degenerate if there is no fertilization. If the corpus luteum is not present, then these two hormones will not be secreted. Clear? And what will happen? Then the next cycle will start. So, during pregnancy, when fertilization implantation of the fertilized eggs occur, hormonal changes prevent ovulation and the shedding of the uterine lining. So, here's how it works. So, first is the ovulation suppression. So, what is happening here? After fertilization, the developing embryo releases hormones that signal the body to maintain the pregnancy. One of the hormones is human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, which is produced by the developing placenta. So placenta also acts as a endocrine tissue. All right. Now this HCG, it acts similarly to the luteinizing hormone and maintain the function of the corpus luteum. Clear? Clear? It acts similarly to the LH hormone. Clear? Which continues to produce progesterone as well as the estrogen. Now, this prevents the release of additional eggs from the ovaries, effectively suppressing the ovulation. Clear? Now, maintenance of the uterine lining. Progesterone produced by the corpus luteum and later by the placenta. So, placenta is also secreting progesterone. And what was the role of progesterone? Maintenance of the what? Maintenance of the uterine wall, endometrium. Now, this helps maintain the thickened uterine lining, which is the endometrium, which is essential for supporting the developing embryo and the fetus. Now, without the drop in progesterone levels that triggers the menstruation, the uterine lining remains intact and supportive. So, there will be no bleeding, so there will be absence of the menstruation. Now, since the ovulation is suppressed and the uterine lining is also maintained, there is no need for the menstruation during the pregnancy. Clear? Instead, the focus is on growth and development of the embryo. Next question. Presence or absence of the hymen is not a reliable indicator of virginity or sexual experience. This is true or false? So, this is true. So, the presence or absence of the hymen is not a reliable indicator of virginity or sexual experience. Now, what is hymen? Hymen is a thin membrane located at the opening of the vagina, and its appearance can be vary widely among the individuals. So, what can happen? This hymen, okay, it can be sometimes broken down due to the vigorous exercise also or some jerk also. All right, or sometimes what happens, even after the sexual intercourse, the hymen, it remain intact. So that's why it is not a reliable indicator of the virginity. So let's have a look at this first point, variability in the hymen structure. So hymen come in various shape and sizes. Some hymens may be thicker and more resilient, while others may be thinner and more elastic. Additionally, some individuals may be born without hymen also, while others may have hymen that naturally wears away over the time due to activity like exercise, tampon use, as well as non-sexual activities. Next is hymen elasticity. So hymen is very flexible membrane that can stretch and accommodate various activities, including physical activities, tampon use, and masturbation. Clear? Now, it can also stretch during the sexual intercourse. Therefore, the presence of an intact hymen does not necessarily indicate the virginity, as it can have stretched or torn without this sexual intercourse also. Next is non-sexual cause of hymen alteration. Now, hymens can be altered or torn due to factors that are not related to the sexual activities. Okay, for example, some individual may experience tearing or stretching of the hymen as a result of trauma, medical procedure, or even vigorous physical exercises. Now, next is the cultural and the social factors. Now, significance placed on the hymen as a marker of virginity varies widely across the different cultures and the societies. Now, in some cultures, there may be a strong social or religious belief surrounding the hymen and virginity, leading to misconception and pressure on the individuals to conform to certain expectations. Now, overall, it's important to recognize that the presence or absence of the hymen is not a distinctive character of the sexual experience or virginity. Now, virginity is a complex and subjective concept that can have different meanings for different individuals and the cultures. It is crucial to approach discussions about sexuality with empathy, respect, and understanding of the diverse experience of the individual. So, clear? So, basically, gist of this is that hymen is not a reliable indicator of the virginity. Why? Because it can be absent or it can be torn because of non-sexual activity also. So it can be torn due to the vigorous exercise also, trauma also, tampon use also, okay, due to masturbation also. Clear? All right. And sometimes it can be, so it is sometimes it is quite thick also, and it can retain even after the sexual intercourse. Clear? And hymen is quite elastic also. Okay, so it can remain intact even after the sexual intercourse. Clear? Now let's move on to the next question. What is menstrual cycle and which hormone regulate the menstrual cycle? Okay, now what is menstrual cycle? It is the cycle observed to be taking place in the females. So it is present in the female, you can say primates or the female mammals, and it lasts for around 28 days. So the usual average time of the menstrual cycle is around 28 days. Now it is a series of cyclic physiological changes occurring in the female reproductive tract in the primates. So it occurs in the female primates, and what happens? There are a lot of physiological and hormonal changes during the menstrual cycle. Okay, now the end of which is combined with the collapsing of the uterine endometrium. Clear? So what happens? The endometrium it breaks down, which results in the menstruation or the bleeding. Clear? Now, the endo which is combined with the collapsing of the uterine endothelium that is liberated in the form of the blood and the mucus through the vaginal opening, which is termed as menses. Clear? Now, different hormones that regulate the menstrual cycle are luteinizing hormone, follicular stimulating hormone, progesterone, and the estrogen. Clear? So, luteinizing hormone and follicular stimulating hormone, these are the pituitary hormone, which is an endocrine gland. Progesterone and estrogen, these are ovarian hormones. All right, this is clear. And you should know what are the phases of the menstrual cycle. So, first is the bleeding phase or the menstruation phase. All right, next is which phase? Next is the proliferative or the follicular phase. Okay, here what happens? There is the shedding of the endometrium. Due to the shedding of the endometrium, there is bleeding. Clear? Next is the follicular phase. Here what happens? There is the maturation of the primary follicle. Maturation of the primary follicle into Graafian follicle. Then third one is the luteal phase, or you can say you can add ovulation also here. So this Graafian follicle, this will rupture and there will be the release of the ovum. Then what happens? After the rupture of the Graafian follicle, the remaining structure gets transformed into the corpus luteum. So next is the luteal phase. So here what happens? There is the formation of the corpus luteum. This corpus luteum is formed from the remnant of the Graafian follicle after the release of the ovum. Clear? Then this corpus luteum secretes the hormones, progesterone and estrogen. Progesterone helps to maintain the endometrium lining. And if there is no fertilization, then the corpus luteum will degenerate. Then, after the degeneration of corpus luteum, what will happen? Again, the next cycle will start because the level of the progesterone and estrogen will decrease, and this will lead to the thinning of the endometrium, and it will lead to the shedding of the endometrium. So now, after this, the next cycle will start. Clear? Now, during the follicular phase, the levels of the LH and luteinizing hormone FSH that are secreted from the anterior pituitary gland increases. Clear? So level of LH and FSH are highest just before the ovulation because LH, this helps in the ovulation, and follicular stimulating hormone, this helps in the maturation of the follicles. So FSH is secreted during the follicular phase. Okay, and LH, level of LH is highest just before the ovulation. So both of these hormones are maximum during the follicular phase, just before the ovulation. Now, FSH, that is secreted under the activities of the releasing hormone from the hypothalamus, triggers the primary follicle to get converted into the Graafian follicle. So this I have written, maturation of the Graafian follicles. Follicle stimulating hormones involved in the maturation of the follicle. So primary follicle is converted into the Graafian follicle. Now there is a gradual increase in level of LH also, okay, which causes the follicle to grow and causes the secretion of the estrogen. Clear? So because of the LH, the estrogen level also increases, and this estrogen is secreted by the follicles, okay, during the follicular phase also. During the follicular phase, what happens? The level of estrogen also start increasing. Now estrogen obstruct the FSH secretion, and this trigger the secretion of the luteinizing hormone, which also result in the thickening of the uterine endometrium. Clear? Now the amplified secretion of luteinizing hormone also results in the Graafian follicle rupture. So LH is involved in the ovulation. Clear? So it will result in the rupturing of the Graafian follicle, and rupturing of the Graafian follicle will release the ovum into the fallopian tube. Clear? Now ruptured Graafian follicle transform into the corpus luteum, and corpus luteum secretes the hormone progesterone and the progesterone and some amount of estrogen also. So level of progesterone will be highest during the luteal phase. Clear? The hormone progesterone, it helps to maintain the endometrium lining. So it helps to prepare the endometrium for the process of implantation. Now when the progesterone level drops, and how the progesterone level, so when the progesterone level is high in the blood, okay, so what happens? The follicle stimulating hormone and LH secretion decreases, which furthermore hinders the process of the ovulation. Clear? This is clear? So you know what happens now? The follicular stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, these are maximum just before the ovulation. So they are produced during the follicular phase, and the level of progesterone will be highest during the luteal phase. Okay? And estrogen is also secreted during the follicular phase only. Clear? And some amount is secreted during the luteal phase, but maximum amount of the progesterone is secreted in the luteal phase. Now, what is parturition and which hormones are involved in the induction of the parturition? Okay, so parturition is the process wherein a fully developed fetus from the embryo mother's womb is expelled after the completion of the gestation period. The gestation period is 9 months. All right. So what happens here? Parturition is given birth to the child. Okay. So parturition is the process wherein a fully developed fetus is seen after the 9 months. Okay. So giving birth to the fully developed fetus, this is known as the parturition. Clear? This uterus, womb is nothing but the uterus. Clear? Now, two critical hormones that are involved in the induction of parturition are as follows. So, first one is the oxytocin. What is the function of the oxytocin? So, it directs the full-term fetus towards the birth canal. Birth canal is made up of the cervical canal and the vagina. Okay? Or you can say just vagina also. Sometimes people say vagina is also known as the birth canal. So, the cervical canal along with the vagina, this is known as the birth canal. Okay. Now, it directs the fetus towards the birth canal as it causes the contraction of the smooth muscles of the myometrium of the uterus, leading to the baby to be expelled out. So, myometrium is the one of the layer of the uterus. It's the middle layer. Now, this myometrium is made up of the smooth muscle cells. Why it is made up of smooth muscle cells? Because smooth muscle cells, these are involuntary. They have involuntary function. All right. So, involuntary means that are not under our control. And these smooth muscles, they can contract. Okay, they can undergo contraction. And because of this contraction, the developed fetus, it is moved towards the birth canal and it leads to the expelling out of the baby through the birth canal. All right, this is clear. Now, next is the relaxin. What is relaxin? It relaxes the pelvic ligaments, widening the pelvis to assist in the easier childbirth. So relaxin is also very important because it is relaxing. So as the name suggests, relaxin. So it relaxes the pelvic ligaments. Okay, and this helps in widening the pelvis also. All right, which assists in the easier childbirth or expelling of the baby out of the birth canal. Now, next question: if in our society women are often blamed of giving birth to the daughters, can you explain why this is not correct? Okay, so this answer depends whether the sex of the progeny it is dependent on the male or on the female. Clear? So we know we have the XX and XY system of sex determination in the humans. Okay, so this is the sex determination system in humans. All right. So males, if we talk about the males, they produce two kinds of gametes. Okay. So we know that okay, we have the autosomes chromosomes and we have the sex chromosomes. All right. So A represents the autosomes. All right. And along with it, one will be the X. And so what is the, so males, they are XY and females, they are XX. They contain two X chromosomes, whereas male contain one X and one Y chromosome. Okay. So male gametes, what will be the gametes produced by the males? Okay, so two kinds of gametes can be produced. One is A plus X and A plus Y. Clear? That's why males, they are known as heterogametic because they are producing two kinds of gametes. Alright, two kinds of gametes are being produced by the males because they have two different kind of sex chromosomes. Clear? Now what happens? Humans, they have 46 chromosomes in total. Out of this, 44 are autosomes and 2 are the sex chromosomes. So here this will be 22 plus 1 will be X chromosome. This will be 22 plus 1 will be the Y chromosome. Clear? So in total it will contain 23 chromosome, 23 chromosome. Now let's talk about the females. So females, they have only one X chromosome. So the gametes produced here will be of one kind only, A plus X. So these gametes will be produced. So only one kinds of gamete is produced here. So females, they are known as homogametic sex, means they produce only one kind of gamete. Clear? Whereas in males, 50% of the gametes, they will contain the X chromosome, and 50% of the gametes, they will contain the Y chromosome. Okay, whereas in female, 100% of the gametes, they will contain A and autosomes as well as the X chromosome. Alright, this is clear. Now, what happens if there is a fertilization between these one? So we will say this as 1, this we will say as, we can say this is a 2, and this we can say as the third one. Alright, or you can say, we can write it like this. We can just write it, we are not giving a name. So if this gamete fertilizes with this gamete or fuses with this gamete, then what will be produced? All right, A plus X if it fertilizes with the A plus X. Okay, if the male gamete, it contains the X chromosome, so this is the male, this one is the female, then here the progeny, what will be the progeny here? All right, it will contain X and X. So this will develop into the female. Okay, if A plus, so if this male gamete fuses with this female gamete, A plus Y, it fuses with the A plus X. Then what will be the progeny here? A plus XY. So this will develop into the male and this will develop into the female. Alright, this is clear. So again, so we know that the human being contains 23 pairs of chromosomes, means 46 chromosome. Out of these, 22 pairs are autosomes. Okay, and the last pair varies in the males and the females. Males are heterochromatic, means they produce two kinds of gametes or the sperm. 50% of the sperm, they carry the X chromosome, while 50% carry the Y chromosome. Now, on the other hand, females are homogametic. They produce only one kind of gametes, all right, now which carry the X chromosome only. Now, once the male and the female gamete fuse to form the zygote, it will carry either the XX chromosome or XY chromosome, depending on whether the sperm carries the X or the Y fertilized ovum. Clear? Now, what happens if the sperm carrying the X chromosome, it fuses with the ovum? Then what will form? Ovum also contains the X chromosome. Then the zygote will be formed that contains both the X chromosome. So this will develop into the female baby. If the sperm carrying the Y chromosome, it fertilizes with the ovum, then the zygote that will form, that will contain the X and Y chromosome, and this will develop into the male baby. Clear? So both of these cases are attributed to the sperm that carries the chromosome fertilizing the ovum. Hence, we can say the sex of the child is determined by the father and not by the mother. That is why it is incorrect to blame women for gender of the child. All right. So these were the male gamete, A plus X and A plus Y. If A plus X, this is the male one, this fertilizes with the A plus X of the female. Then here the zygote that will be formed, that will contain X and X. This will develop into female. Clear? Here A plus X, then X plus Y will be formed, and this will be the this will develop into the male. Clear? You can write 2A here. All right, clear? That's why the sex is determined by the father. Next question, how many eggs are released by a human ovary in the month? How many eggs do you think would have been released if the mother gave birth to the identical twins? Would your answer change if the twins are born were fraternal? Now, typically in a month, human ovary release only one egg, rarely two. Okay, so you know menstrual cycle, this is of 20 days, 28 days, and the egg is released, okay, at the mid of the menstrual cycle. So, okay, it is released at around 14 days. So only one egg is released in 1 month. In the case of identical twins or monozygotic twins, one egg is released by the ovary, which splits into two post fertilization. So after fertilization, it splits into two. So and that's how identical twins are produced. Post fertilization means after the fertilization. So after the fertilization, zygote is formed. Then what happens? Then the division will take place in the zygote, and this will lead to the formation of the identical twins. So this is why identical twins exhibit the same genetic features also. Clear? Because they because the zygote is dividing. All right, two eggs are not produced. Only one egg is only produced. Clear? Now, on the other hand, in fraternal twins or dizygotic twins, two eggs are released, which are fertilized by two different sperms, causing the fraternal twins to exhibit different genetic characteristics. So, you know, gametes, these are produced by meiosis. Clear? So, what happens during meiosis? There is recombination and crossing over. Recombination and crossing over occurs. So, this results in the formation of four unique gametes. Clear? This will lead to the formation of four unique gametes. So, okay, after meiosis, four cells are formed. Alright, these four cells will be unique. They will contain different genetic material. That's why two eggs are released. And these two eggs are fertilized by two different sperms. So the genetic makeup will be different. Okay? There will be not huge difference, but there will be difference between the fraternal twins because they are produced by the fertilization of two different eggs by two different sperms. Clear? Next question, how many eggs do you think were released by the ovary of the female dog which gave birth to 6 puppies? In order to have given birth to 6 puppies, the ovary of the female dog should release 6 eggs. Hence, 6 zygotes were formed, okay, for each to develop into the puppy. All right. So, this is the end of the session. We have covered all the NCERT questions. All right. I hope you enjoyed all the sessions here. Okay. Thank you very much for listening.